My name is Jamin Goecker. I'm a realtor in South Central Alaska, and my mission is to help you to build an intentional and significant legacy for yourself and your family by coaching in real estate. And today, what we're talking about is whether or not your VA loan is useless. So, this is something that's obviously pretty near and dear to my heart right now. I know some of you have already mentally and emotionally checked out and probably in the process of leaving a nasty comment right now. That's perfectly fine. Before you do so, make sure you give this video a like or a thumbs down. Helps either way. And by all means, leave that nasty comment down below. Now, give you kind of a precursor as to why I decided to do this video. I have obviously been working with quite a few folks lately that have the VA loan, and it has been rough lately. And kind of the assumption was, hey, VA loans, they're just not as desirable as you're gonna have with a lot of the other loan types that you have out there. And I really wanted to take a deep dive into the numbers to see if that was the case, or if that was just kind of accepted knowledge without actually being backed up in the numbers. So I decided to take a little bit of a deeper dive in there and see if that's the case. So first off, VA loan, it is awesome. And if you are military, that is certainly a great perk of the service, is you get to use the VA loan. So, let's not take that away from you. So it is awesome. That being said though, sellers don't have to accept the VA loan. Usually it's a little bit expensive sometimes, and it's in a very small way would it be more expensive. The VA also has a reputation of being a little bit more challenging to work with. Appraisal requirements can come back sometimes, and it'll be stuff like, hey, the railings on the stairs are too far apart. Now we've got to, make those a little bit more narrow. So it's just little stuff like that can make the VA loan perceived as being less desirable by sellers. It's not to say that it's garbage or that's terrible, or it's like getting a rehab loan or something like that. But sometimes it can be a little bit of a chore, and you're definitely going to hear some horror stories around that. But those are pretty far and few between. Unless your house really has issues, VA loan, it's usually just not going to have much problem with qualifying for it. So let's go and take a deep dive into the numbers though, see exactly the past 3 years, what we're seeing for overall for the entire state. Is the VA loan starting to slip in its desirability? And then I want to compare that with the conventional loan, because that's usually the loan that people kind of see as the high mark of loan quality. That's what you want to see if you're a seller, because expenses are usually a little bit lower. When I say little, I mean like it's not too much more. Maybe, I don't know, break it out. We'll get a loan calculator or something on here just to show you. It's really not that much of a difference. And I want to compare that with the VA loan though, and see if there's really much of a difference there. So let's go and jump into that. So we're going to start out at the 30,000 foot view, looking at the entire state to get a feel for what's going on with the VA loan. And really at the 30,000 foot view, we see that 23% of the loans that closed in 2019, 2020 were VA loans, and that trend has maintained up to the present time. 23% of the total closed volume has routinely come from the VA loan. So that's pre-COVID, before things got crazy with the real estate market as a result of that, up to the current time. So there really hasn't been much of a slip as far as that goes for the past 3 years. Now, what about conventional loans? On conventional loans, what we're seeing is that it actually has increased for the market share, because it went from about 36% in 2019, 2020, and then 41%, and then 43%. So we've seen a pretty sizable increase in the market share for conventional loans. That's kind of to be expected in a market like this. It's not coming at the expense of VA loans across the board though. And really where we're seeing the conventional kind of taking a bite out of some other market would, one, be the cash deals, because those have gone down in previous years from what I've seen. And the Alaska Housing Finance Corporation loans, those have definitely had quite a few loans that have decreased over the years. They've really just been, they've kind of been brutalized the past couple of years if you're looking at their market share. And that's really, I believe, where the conventional loans have been making up a lot of their market share, and why those are usually more desirable. That's not to say that no loan is desirable, not desirable. I'm just saying that's what the perception is. So that's number one. Across the board, VA loans have stayed pretty much the same. And looking at the conventional loans, those have gained market share over the past couple of years. Now, one other thing I wanted to know is, are the properties older, that the VA folks are buying? Like, is there any difference in what they're buying? And what I saw is it really hasn't changed very much. We do see that the average days on market for those that have gone under market for the VA loans has definitely decreased. I think it was back in 2019, it was about 58 days, and it dipped down to about 42. And now up to the current time, 21 to 22 to the current time, it is 26 days. So it is getting faster and faster and faster. And so that's something you need to keep in mind if you are wanting to jump into this, that you're not going to have the luxury of, okay, we see it, now we're going to take a couple of days, we're going to go home, we're going to think about it, we're going to go talk to about 5 people, see what they think. Things go on and they go off very quickly. 26 days is blistering fast when you're going at the 30,000 foot view at the entire state. Now, what I also want to know is what's going on in these specific markets that I work in. So looking at Anchorage, Eagle River, and the MatSu Valley, and I mean the entire MatSu Valley as well. So what's going on in those markets? Do we see a similar trend where the VA has continued to hold its own, and the conventional loan has continued to increase its prevalence in the market, largely at the expense of the Alaska Housing Finance Corporation? Well, let's take a look. Now, looking at the MatSu Valley, we see that the VA loan has more or less held its own over the past couple of years. So we see that it went from about 25% of all the loans that closed were VA, and then in 2020, 2021, we saw that actually increased to 27%. And then this past year, 21 to 22, we saw that actually decreased down to about 26%. So you see about a 2% increase or decrease over that time period. Not a whole lot of difference though. More or less it's holding its own. Now for conventional loans in the MatSu Valley, that's a completely different story, okay? So that goes from 31% of the loans that were closed in the MatSu Valley were conventional, that it increases to 33. And then for the past year, 21 to 22, it increased to 38% were conventional loans, which that's pretty telling for the market that we're in. And again, that largely came at the expense of loans from the Alaska Housing Finance Corporation. So looking at Anchorage specifically to see what kind of market share that the VA loan has over the past 3 years, that's kind of surprising. It's kind of counterintuitive for what you would expect in a tight market where everything's getting competitive, because it went from 21% of market share back in 2019, 2020, and then it increased to 22, and then this past year it increased up to 24%. So that's pretty significant for it to have that big of a swing there. I think it's roughly about 3 or 4% over the course of those 3 years. So kind of counterintuitive, but yes, VA loan is taking more ground in Anchorage than you would think. You would intuitively think that would kind of decrease, but that has not been the case. Now for conventional loans in Anchorage, different story. Well, same story, just a little bit more intense, because the market share back in 2019, 2020 went from 44% and it increased to 50% in 2020 to 21, and then in 21 to 22, it again was at 50%. So that's a 6% increase. Like as soon as the market took off, it had that 6% just jump in the market share for the loans in the area, which again, largely coming at the expense of Alaska Housing Finance Corporation loans. Last but not least, let's check out and see what's going on in Eagle River as far as the VA loan goes. So if you're really familiar with Eagle River, or you've been studying it for a little bit, you know that we have a lot of military folks that do come through here. And this is kind of an area that a lot of folks kind of gravitate towards for a lot of reasons. So what we see here in the numbers is, not surprisingly, the VA loan accounted for 51% of all the properties that sold in Eagle River back in 2019, 2020. Now, how did that fare moving forward? It actually increased. So it went from 51% to 52%, and again in 52% back in 21 to the current time. So despite the fact that it's a really competitive market, we are seeing that the VA loan is actually taking ground in Eagle River. Now, looking at the conventional loan in Eagle River, yes, definitely took market share as well. So it went from 31% to 33% to 34%. So we see roughly about a 3% increase for conventional loans in Eagle River. Not a huge difference. Most of the homes in Eagle River are obviously have no problem at all qualifying for an FHA or VA loan. So we don't have a whole lot of properties where it's like conventional or nothing. So that's definitely good. But yeah, definitely the conventional loan did see an increase in usage over the past couple of years. Sorry. Let's take a break here real quick. For those of you who've been watching for a while, you know that number one, I do have a podcast that's called The Alaskan Journey. I host that podcast and interview people who actually live up here in Alaska, and we talk about what it's like actually living up here from the perspective of other people besides me, so you can really get a broad spectrum of viewpoints if you're considering moving up here. And secondly, I have a relocation guide for those of you who are considering moving up here. It's no cost for you. Do just register on my website. A link for that is going to be in the description section down below, and put relocation guide in the little comment section so I know what in the world to send you. Now, let's go and talk about what it is that you need to do with this information moving forward. So we know that across the board, VA loans are not necessarily struggling to take market share, at least for the past 3 years. And I will say currently what we're seeing is a lot of VA loans are struggling because everything is a multiple offer situation. And rightly or wrongly, a lot of sellers kind of view the VA loan as being a little bit more challenging to work with than a conventional loan or another loan type. So that's just the perception. Don't shoot the messenger. So that's kind of what we're seeing now. I'm really curious to see in 6 months what the data shows us moving forward. For what the data shows for what we were experiencing right now, was it any different from the past couple of years? I can say here in Eagle River, the average days on market, like I said, for those properties that are VA are about 26 days. Folks that are looking at VA loans right now are usually in kind of that first-time home buyer price range. And those are moving blistering fast, because not only do you have other VA folks, other military that are looking at coming up here, but you're also looking at a lot of first-time home buyers that are also competing really hard for those properties in a market that is getting less and less inventory. So prices are definitely going up, and that was reflected in the numbers very much for every market that we looked at. I could definitely talk more about that, but go check out some market updates about a year or so ago, and you'll see what I'm talking about. So yes, expect competition. Number two, just because you're military, do not expect people to cut you slack. Be like, oh, they're military, let's just give it to them. Don't expect that. People are going to thank you for your service, and they're going to be appreciative right up to the point it costs them anything. So don't expect that, and nobody will cut you slack really because you're military or you're using the VA loan. They're just not gonna, they don't care. And I know that sounds callous, but active duty military people don't care if it's a military person making the offer. So don't expect that. That's not your trump card. The best thing you can do is make sure that your finances are squared away, we got cash, and we are ready to act quickly if we see what you're looking for, that, and also that we're able to get a real clear picture of what it is that you're looking for, and we can hopefully find something that's off market. Because once it gets onto the market, we're in a multiple offer situation, and that's usually not a situation that you want to be in if you're a buyer. So that's really where we want to get to, where we have an off-market option for you, and we're not going to have to compete with everybody else. Now, one other thing I want to caution you about: if you are looking at moving up here and you're military and you know you're going to be PCSing out in 3 to 4 years, we have got to be careful you are not overpaying. This is a really small window of time we're in right now, and a lot of people have lost their flippin' mind, especially in the first-time home buyer price range, and they're offering prices that are like $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 over what the stats show that it's actually worth. So you take a huge gamble when you play that game that the appraiser is going to catch it and bump them back, and they may not catch it. And then you end up being in a place 3 or 4 years from now, and it's like, whoa, no, oh my gosh, my house lost value. And it's like, well, no, it didn't really lose value. It just wasn't ever worth that from the beginning. So if you are considering moving up here, that's something you have to consider. Make sure you're talking with a realtor and a real estate professional up here who is committed to making sure that you get into the right house, and you're not going to be eating it in 3 to 4 years just because they were trying to slap you into any old home and they weren't thinking long term. Okay, I feel like I've been on my soapbox long enough today. So I sure hope this is useful for you. If you do have questions, feel free to reach out to me either on my Facebook page, on my website, or slide into my DMs. All those links are going to be down below. And again, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.